Imagine standing in the middle of January in your garden at -20 degrees. The ground is frozen, hard as stone. Snow crystals glitter in the weak morning sun. Your breath forms small clouds in the icy air. Most people believe that nothing grows now, that nature has fallen into a deep sleep, that self-sufficiency in this season is a naive illusion. But exactly at this moment, while you stand there, something is hidden beneath the snow cover that most do not see, do not understand, do not even suspect. Life, food, real, tangible independence. There are plants on this planet that don't just survive icy winters, but outright challenge them. Plants that thrive at temperatures where others have long since given up. Plants that don't just survive, but become stronger in the cold, taste sweeter, are more resilient. Plants that can secure your supply when everything else fails, when supply chains collapse, when prices explode, when the shelves are empty. Today you will get to know 12 of these silent survival artists, plants that don't just withstand a few degrees below zero, but defy temperatures down to -35 degrees Celsius. Plants that can fundamentally change your garden, your life, and your security. If real self-sufficiency is important to you, if you want to learn how to make yourself independent from fragile supply chains and rising prices, then subscribe to this channel now. Hit the bell so you don't miss any of this life-changing information, and leave a like if you stay until the end, because at the end, everything comes together. You will understand why exactly these 12 plants can form the basis for a crisis-proof life, why they were not chosen by chance, but form a system of independence. We live in a time when security must be redefined, when the old certainties are crumbling, when we must learn what our grandparents still knew as a matter of course. Our grandparents, who lived through the war, who knew real scarcity, who understood what it meant to survive the winter. They had root cellars, dug deep into the earth, cool and dark. They had winter gardens, not as a luxury, but as life insurance. They had preserved supplies in rows, labeled, dated, carefully conserved. They knew plants that still provided food even when the world outside froze, when the snow was meters high, when no one could get through to them. This knowledge has been largely lost within just 2 generations. We have become accustomed to supermarkets always being filled, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That vegetables come from Spain when it's cold air, that strawberries in December are a matter of course, that someone else takes care of our nutrition, somewhere far away, invisible. But the last few years have taught us this certainty is fragile, brittle, dangerous, deceptive. Energy crises have shown how quickly supply can collapse. Disrupted supply chains have opened our eyes. Exploding prices have taught us that we are vulnerable. The question is no longer whether we should relearn the basics again. The question is, when do we start? Today? Tomorrow? Next year? Or only when it's too late, when the crisis is here, when the shelves are actually empty? The winter is not your enemy. That is the first thing you must understand. The winter is a teacher, a strict, relentless teacher, but an honest one. It shows you what works and what doesn't. It separates the wheat from the chaff. And these 12 plants that you will get to know today are its best students. They have passed the test, not once, but 1,000 times, over centuries, over millennia.
We begin with a plant that is so robust that it is cultivated even in Siberia. Kale. This inconspicuous type of cabbage is a marvel of evolution, a triumph of adaptation. At -15 degrees, kale does not get weaker, it does not get mushy, it does not die off. On the contrary, it becomes sweeter. Why? Because the plant converts its starch into sugar during frost to protect the cells from freezing. This process, which botanists call a frost protection reaction, is ingeniously simple and effective. The sugar lowers the freezing point of the cellular fluid, similar to salt on icy roads. The result? A vegetable that doesn't just survive after the first frost, but tastes better than before. Milder, sweeter, less bitter. Kale easily survives -25 degrees, some varieties even down to -30 degrees. There are varieties like Winterbor that were specifically bred for extreme cold, or the black lacinato kale, which we will discuss in more detail later. You can sow kale in late summer, plant it in September, and harvest it all winter long. From November to March, that's 5 months of fresh vegetables. Simply cut off the outer leaves, the plant continues to grow, producing new leaves from the center. A single plant can provide you with regular harvests throughout the winter. Imagine going outside in January. It has snowed. Your boots crunch in the snow. You brush the snow off the dark green, curly leaves and cut yourself some fresh vegetables. No storage necessary, no preservation, no freezer that needs electricity. Nature itself is a refrigerator. And not only that, kale is one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables of all, packed with vitamin K, vitamin C, calcium, iron, a superfood long before this term became fashionable.
Top 2. Winter onions. The second plant on our list is one that many underestimate because it appears so ordinary. Winter onions. But don't be fooled. These are not the normal onions that you harvest in summer. Winter onions are specially bred to spend the winter in the ground. Varieties like Shakespeare, Radar, or Senchu. They are set in September or October. Small onion sets, barely larger than a walnut. Then they grow throughout the entire winter under the earth, slowly, steadily, inexorably. They are ready for harvest in early spring, often as early as May or even late April, weeks before you even think about sowing other plants. While others are still preparing beds, you are already harvesting. That is a massive advantage. Winter onions survive down to -30 degrees. They even need the cold to ripen properly. This is the principle of vernalization. Some plants require a cold phase, a cold stimulus, to develop fully, to move from the vegetative to the generative phase, to form bulbs. Nature has perfected these mechanisms over millennia. You just have to use them. The cultivation is incredibly simple. You loosen the soil, stick the small onions about 5 centimeters deep into the earth at a distance of 10 to 15 centimeters. That's it. No watering in winter, no fertilizing. The onions simply do their work. In spring, you see green shoots that get stronger and stronger. And then, when the leaves start to turn yellow and fall over, it's harvest time. You pull them out of the ground, let them dry for a few days, and have onions for months. Onions that you didn't buy. Onions that no one can take away from you. Top 3. Miner's lettuce. Now it gets interesting, because the third plant is one that is completely unknown to most, even though it is a jewel of the winter garden. Miner's lettuce, also known as winter purslane or claytonia. This inconspicuous leafy vegetable originally comes from North America, specifically from the coastal regions from Alaska to California. It was eaten by gold miners in Alaska to prevent scurvy. This dreaded vitamin C deficiency disease that cost the lives of so many sailors and pioneers. The gold miners knew that this herb grows even in winter, even in snow, even in cold. Miner's lettuce grows at temperatures where other lettuces have long since frozen into ice. -20 degrees? No problem. The plant continues to grow slowly, even in December and January, when the days are short and the nights are long. You can put it in a simple cold frame, under a fleece, or even grow it outdoors, depending on the region and the microclimate of your garden. The leaves are tender, almost fleshy, crisp, with a mild, slightly nutty flavor. They are rich in vitamin C, contain omega-3 fatty acids, and various minerals. And the best part? Miner's lettuce seeds itself. You have to sow it once in late summer or early autumn, and then it comes back every year. The plants bloom in spring, forming tiny seeds that fall to the ground and germinate again the next autumn. You have a self-sustaining food source. Very few people realize this. Most people think of self-sufficiency as hard work, constant sowing and planting. But there are plants like miner's lettuce that do the work for you, that are simply there, year after year. Top 4. Lacinato kale. Let's come to a plant that symbolizes real toughness, that is practically a statement. Lacinato kale, also called black kale or cavolo nero. This Italian cabbage, traditionally grown in Tuscany, is not only extremely frost-resistant, it is also aesthetically impressive. Imagine long, narrow, dark green to almost black leaves that arch elegantly upwards, looking like feathers, forming a plant that can grow nearly a meter high. Lacinato kale is a work of art of nature. It can withstand down to -20 degrees. Some sources even report -25 degrees for established plants. Like curly kale, it also becomes sweeter and milder after frost. The leaves lose their bitterness and become more tender. You can harvest it as a baby leaf when the leaves are still small and tender, or you can let it grow to full size and harvest the large, impressive leaves. It is perfect for soups, for stews, for the traditional Tuscan ribollita. You can blanch and freeze it. You can process it into chips by roasting the leaves in the oven. You can put it raw in smoothies. Lacinato kale stands in your garden all winter like a silent guard, ready to feed you. It needs almost no care.
Once planted in early summer or midsummer, it grows slowly but steadily. By autumn, it has reached its full size, and then its true glory time begins. While other plants wither and die, it stands there, strong, green, alive. It shows you life does not give up.
Stay tuned, because now we come to plants that work underground, silently and invisibly securing your supply. The fifth plant is a root that is deeply anchored in European culture, which fed our ancestors for centuries: parsnip. Before the potato came to Europe in the 16th century, the parsnip was one of the most important staple foods. It was grown in monastery gardens, in farm gardens, everywhere. Then it was displaced by the potato and almost forgotten. But now it's experiencing a renaissance, and for good reason. The parsnip is not only frost-resistant, it is frost-loving. It loves the cold. It needs the frost to develop its full potential. Parsnips can overwinter in the ground and are only harvested after the frost has refined them. The cold converts their starch into sugar, making them sweeter, more aromatic, and more complex in flavor. A parsnip harvested in summer tastes bland, woody, and uninteresting. A parsnip that has spent the winter in the ground tastes sweet, nutty, almost buttery. Minus 25 degrees is no obstacle for a parsnip in the ground. You can sow them in spring, let them grow all summer and autumn, and then leave them in the ground all winter long. You might cover the bed with a layer of straw or leaves to make harvesting easier if the ground freezes hard. And then you dig them up as needed in December, January, February. Even in March, they are still in the ground. Even if the ground is frozen, you can get to your food with a digging fork or a pickaxe. You hack a hole in the ice, dig deeper, and there they are. White, thick roots, full of energy, full of flavor. The parsnip teaches us patience is rewarded. It also teaches us the earth is the best storage room. Why should you store parsnips in the cellar where they shrink and lose their quality when you can just leave them where they grew? Nature already has the perfect solution.
Top 6. Brussels sprouts. The sixth plant is a classic of winter cuisine that everyone knows but few truly appreciate: Brussels sprouts. These small, compact cabbage heads that form along a thick, robust stalk are masters of cold resistance. Brussels sprouts easily tolerate -15 to -20 degrees. Here too, the frost makes them better. The sprouts become sweeter, less bitter, and more pleasant in taste. Brussels sprouts are a plant that requires patience. You sow them in spring, plant them out in summer, and then you wait and wait. The plant grows slowly, first forming a tall stalk, then small buds in the leaf axils. These buds are the Brussels sprouts. In autumn, you begin to harvest from the bottom up. The lowest sprouts ripen first. You harvest them, and the plant continues to produce higher up the stalk. A single stalk can supply a family several times over weeks. Harvesting in the depths of winter is a special experience. You go out, the snow is lying there, the air is clear and cold. You see the Brussels sprout stalks sticking out of the snow like small trees. You break off fresh, green, firm sprouts. They are frozen, hard as marbles. You take them inside, let them thaw, and then you cook them. Steamed with a little butter, roasted in the oven with olive oil and salt, or in a soup. The taste is intense, sweet, and aromatic. That is self-sufficiency in perfection. That is the reward for patience.
Top 7. Jerusalem artichoke. Now we come to a plant that is often overlooked, although it is incredibly valuable, even though it is one of the easiest to care for and highest yielding plants of all: Jerusalem artichoke. This tuber, also called sunchoke, is a relative of the sunflower. In summer, it grows meters high, forming yellow flowers that resemble small sunflowers. But the real gold lies beneath the earth. Jerusalem artichoke is practically indestructible. The tubers overwinter in the ground and easily survive -30 degrees. Some reports even speak of -35 degrees. You can plant them in autumn, completely forget about them over the winter, and harvest them in spring if you need them. Or you can simply leave them in the ground and harvest as needed all year round. The tubers are sweetest in winter, similar to parsnips. Jerusalem artichoke spreads strongly, almost invasively. Every little tuber you leave in the ground will become a new plant next year. This means, once planted, you have a reliable food source for years, even decades. You don't have to do anything. The plant simply does its work, year after year. This is the ultimate form of self-sufficiency. Plants that take care of themselves. The tubers taste nutty, slightly sweet with an earthy note. They are versatile. You can grate them raw and use them in salads. You can boil, fry, or process them into soup. You can even turn them into a kind of chip. They contain inulin, a prebiotic fiber that is not digested by the body, but by the good bacteria in your gut. This means Jerusalem artichoke is good for your gut health and strengthens your immune system. But it also means you should introduce them slowly, because too much inulin at once can lead to bloating. Your body has to get used to it. Jerusalem artichoke is the plant for people who really think long-term, for people who understand that self-sufficiency doesn't mean working hard every day, but planning wisely. Plant once, harvest for years. That is the philosophy.
Top 8. Horseradish. This is crucial. Do you understand what is happening here? We are not talking about gardening as a hobby. We are talking about life security, about strategies that work when everything else fails. The 8th plant on this list is one that everyone knows, but hardly anyone uses in winter, although that is exactly when it has its greatest value. Horseradish. This pungent, penetrating root grows in temperate and cold climates and tolerates winters down to -35 degrees. Horseradish is not just a spice, not just a side dish for roast beef or smoked fish. Horseradish is a natural antibiotic, a cure, a medicine. In times when medical care could be uncertain, when antibiotics could be scarce or inaccessible, a plant like horseradish is worth its weight in gold. The root contains mustard oils, pungent, volatile compounds that have antibacterial and antiviral effects. They strengthen the immune system, help with respiratory infections, and relieve sinus infections. Our grandparents knew this. They had horseradish in the garden, dug it up in autumn and winter, grated it fresh, and mixed it with honey for colds. You plant it once, and it continues to grow year after year. The plant is perennial, forming large, broad leaves in summer and thick, long roots underground. In autumn and winter, when the leaves die off, you dig up the roots. You wash them, peel them, grate them fresh. The smell is penetrating, pungent, brings tears to the eyes. But exactly this pungency is the medicine. You can eat horseradish raw in small quantities. You can grate it and mix it with vinegar or cream to use as a sauce. You can dry it and pulverize it to keep as a spice. And you can use it medicinally, freshly grated with honey for colds, as a poultice for muscle pain, as a tincture for the home medicine cabinet. Horseradish teaches us, pungency is the will to survive. Pungency is defense. Pungency is life.
Top 9. Sea buckthorn. The 9th plant is a berry that you might not have expected, but which should not be missing from any crisis-proof garden. Sea buckthorn. This thorny, undemanding shrub often grows in coastal regions and mountains under extreme conditions. In the dunes of the Baltic Sea, where the wind lashes and the sand flies. In the mountains, where the soil is barren and the winters are harsh. Sea buckthorn survives winters down to -40 degrees. That is Siberian level. Its orange berries, which ripen in late summer and autumn, are true vitamin bombs. They contain more vitamin C than lemons, 10 times more than oranges. They contain vitamin E, important for the skin and the immune system. They contain rare omega-7 fatty acids that are found in hardly any other plant. Sea buckthorn is not just food, it is medicine. The oil from the berries and seeds has been used for centuries in traditional medicine, for wound healing, for skin problems, for strengthening the immune system. Sea buckthorn is an investment in the future. It takes 2 to 3 years for the plants to bear for the first time, but then you have a rich harvest every year in August and September. The berries hang densely packed on the branches, bright orange, almost glowing. However, harvesting is a challenge because the berries are soft and burst easily, and the branches have thorns. Some people cut off entire branches and freeze them, then the berries can be stripped off more easily. Others use special combs or shake the branches over spread out cloths. The berries are sour, very sour, too sour to eat raw in large quantities, but processed they are delicious. You can press them into juice, sweeten with a little honey or sugar. You can boil them into jam. You can dry them and use them as an addition to muesli. You can process them into syrup, liqueur, chutney. The possibilities are endless, and the shrub itself brings additional benefits. It serves as a windbreak, protecting more sensitive plants. Its roots fix nitrogen from the air and enrich the soil, making it more fertile. It provides habitat for birds and insects. Sea buckthorn shows us resilience has many faces. A plant can do more than just provide food.
Top 10. Chives. Let's move on to the 10th plant,
an herb that appears so modest that one easily overlooks its power. Chives. Yes, chives. These tender green stalks that you might only know as a garnish, as a small addition to quark or potatoes. But don't underestimate chives. This plant is tougher than it looks. Chives are perennial and easily survive -25 degrees, some varieties even more. In winter, the above-ground parts die off, the green stalks turn brown and wither, but the bulbs in the ground, small bulbous structures that grow in groups, remain alive. They rest, they wait. In an early spring, often as early as February or March, when the snow has just melted, chives sprout again. It is one of the first plants to show green life, a sign that winter is over, that a new cycle is beginning. You can also simply let chives overwinter on the windowsill. Then you have fresh greens all year round. You repot it in autumn, put it in the house, and it continues to grow, slower than in summer, but steadily. You cut off the stalks when you need them, and new ones grow back. A small pot of chives can supply you for months. Chives are not just seasoning, they are also healthy. They contain vitamin C, vitamin K, iron. They have an antibacterial effect, promote digestion, strengthen the immune system, and they are so easy to grow, so undemanding, that even absolute beginners have success. Chives remind us, even small things have great power. Even modest plants can make a difference.
Top 11. Sea kale. The 11th plant is one that is not yet so well known in Germany, but that should change, because it is a true jewel. Sea kale. This vegetable, originally growing on the coasts of the Atlantic and the Baltic Sea, is extremely frost-hardy and survives down to -25 degrees. Sea kale, botanically Crambe maritima, is a perennial plant with thick, fleshy, blue-green leaves and white flowers in early summer. Sea kale was formerly cultivated in England and Northern Europe, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries. It was a valued vegetable that was harvested in early spring when nothing else was available. It was forced in the dark, similar to asparagus, to obtain tender, white, asparagus-like shoots. These shoots were steamed, served with butter, traded as a delicacy. Then sea kale fell into oblivion, displaced by other vegetable varieties, displaced by industrial agriculture. Today, it is experiencing a renaissance, especially among people looking for forgotten, robust food plants. Sea kale is perennial, needs almost no care, tolerates salty soils, wind, drought, and it tolerates cold. In spring, it sprouts thick, strong shoots from the root that you can harvest. Later, large leaves grow, which are also edible, although somewhat coarser. The plant needs a few years to establish itself, but then it is practically indestructible. Sea kale shows us what our ancestors knew we should not forget. In the past lie solutions for the future. Old vegetable varieties, forgotten plants, traditional knowledge. All of this is valuable, perhaps more valuable than we realize today.
Top 12. Barberry. And finally, the 12th plant, one that simultaneously offers food, medicine, and protection. Barberry. This thorny, dense shrub produces bright red, elongated berries in autumn that hang on the branches like small gemstones. Barberry, botanically Berberis vulgaris, tolerates winters down to -35 degrees Fahrenheit, grows in almost any soil, from sandy to loamy, from acidic to alkaline, and needs almost no care. A shrub that simply grows, that can be left to itself, and still produces. The berries are sour, very sour, similar to cranberries. You don't eat them raw in large quantities, but processed, they are delicious and valuable. They are extremely rich in vitamins, contain vitamin C, organic acids, antioxidants. You can dry them, then they have a long shelf life and can be used like raisins. In Persian cuisine, dried barberries, called zereshk there, are an integral part of many dishes, especially in rice dishes. They give a pleasant acidity, a freshness, a complexity. You can also boil barberries into jam, process them into syrup, press them into juice. Furthermore, the plant has medicinal properties. The root bark contains berberine, an active ingredient that has an antibacterial effect, promotes digestion, and can help with diarrhea. In traditional medicine, barberry root was used for liver and gallbladder problems. And then there are the thorns. Barberry forms dense, thorny branches that represent a natural barrier. You can plant them as a hedge to protect your property, to keep out uninvited guests, both human and animal. A barberry hedge is impenetrable. Even deer avoid them. Barberry is the perfect combination of food, medicine, and security. It shows us plants can be multifunctional. They can fulfill more than one task. That is the 12 plants. 12 silent warriors against the cold. 12 pillars of independence. 12 building blocks for a crisis-proof life. But it is not enough just to know them. It is not enough to watch this video and then continue as before. You must understand how they work together. You must understand that they form a system. Imagine your garden as a living network, as an organism in which every plant plays a role. A winter garden is not a place of rest, but a place of silent activity, of hidden processes, of the slow but unstoppable production of life. Kale and lacinato kale provide you with fresh leafy vegetables, rich in vitamins and minerals. They cover your need for green vegetables, for chlorophyll, for secondary plant substances. Parsnips and Jerusalem artichokes give you starchy roots for energy, for calories, for satiety. They are your carbohydrate source, your bread, your potatoes. Winter onions and chives provide seasoning, flavor, the little joys that make eating more than just food intake. Sea buckthorn and barberry cover your vitamin needs, especially vitamin C, which is so important in winter to prevent colds and strengthen the immune system. Horseradish additionally strengthens your immune system, has an antibacterial effect, is a natural home medicine cabinet. Miner's lettuce and sea kale supplement your diet with variety, with different tastes, with different nutrients. Brussels sprouts give you weeks of harvests from a single plant, teach you patience, and reward you with abundance.
These plants are not randomly chosen. They form together a network of supply, a system that works. If you combine them, if you have them all in your garden, you are supplied all winter long. Not with everything, that is clear. You will not live exclusively from them, but you will cover a large part of your diet. You will have fresh vegetables when others have to go to the supermarket. You will have vitamins when others reach for dietary supplements. You will have food that you produced yourself, that you harvested yourself, with a security that no one can take from you. And here comes the crucial point that you really must understand. These plants are only the beginning. They are an example. They show you a principle, a fundamental concept, the principle of resilience, the principle of adaptation, the principle of working with nature, not against it. Nature has worked for millions of years to develop solutions for extreme conditions: frost, heat, drought, flood, wind, shade. For everything there are plants that are adapted, that not only survive, but thrive. Plants that grow under conditions where you believe that nothing can grow. Your task is to find these plants, to cultivate them, to use them. The 12 plants that you got to know today are your signposts. They tell you it is possible. Even when it is cold, even when it is dark, even when it seems difficult, it is possible to provide for oneself. And once you have understood the principle, you can go further. You can look for other frost-resistant plants. Lamb's lettuce, for example, which withstands down to -15 degrees. Asian greens, like mizuna and mibuna, which are also frost-tolerant. Winter bunching onions, which taste like spring onions and can be harvested all winter long. Purslane, which grows even in snow. The list is long. Nature is generous if you know where to look. Think about what it means for you personally. You are no longer just dependent on a system that can let you down. You are no longer just a cog in a machine that you don't understand and don't control. You are no longer just a consumer, passive, waiting, hoping. You become a producer. You become a creator. You take your life into your own hands in the truest sense of the word. Your hands in the soil. Your hands that sow and plant and harvest. That is no exaggeration. That is no romanticization. That is reality. Each of these plants that you put into the earth is an act of self-determination. Every seed you sow is a decision for independence. Every harvest in the depths of winter is proof that you can do it, that you are not helpless, that you have control over your life, over your supply. The world is changing. That we all know. We see it in the news. We feel it in our wallets. We feel it in the air, in the uncertainty that is spreading. No one knows exactly what the next few years will bring. No one can predict the future. But one thing we know for sure. Whoever is prepared, whoever is independent, whoever masters the basics has a chance. Not just a chance to survive, but to live, with dignity, with self-confidence, with the certainty that you can rely on yourself,
that you are not at the mercy of others, that you are capable of action. These 12 plants are more than vegetables and herbs and berries. They are symbols, they are teachers, they are a philosophy of resilience, a philosophy that says we do not give up, we adapt, we use what nature gives us. We learn from nature, from its infinite wisdom, from its patience, from its persistence. And we do it now, not sometime, not next year, not when the crisis is already there. Now. Winter comes every year. That is a certainty, one of the few we have. But you can decide how you face it, with fear and dependence, with the feeling of being at the mercy of others, having to rely on others, having to hope that someone else takes care of you, or with knowledge and preparation, with the certainty that you are prepared, that you are equipped, that you have a plan.
Die choice is yours, and it begins today. It begins now, in this moment. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to sow 12 different plants tomorrow. You can start small, with one plant, with kale perhaps, because it is so easy, so robust, so productive. Or with winter onions, because they require hardly any work and reward you in spring. Or with Jerusalem artichoke, because you plant it once and then harvest it for years. Start. That is the most important step. The first step, the decision to act. And then you learn, you gain experience, you see what works in your garden, in your climate, in your soil. You make mistakes. That's normal. That's part of it. Not every plant will survive. Not every harvest will be abundant. But you learn, and with every year you get better. With every year you understand more. With every year you become more independent. If this video has opened your eyes, if you have recognized that self-sufficiency is also possible in winter, that there are plants that can give you the security you seek, then subscribe to this channel now. Hit the bell so you don't miss any more life-changing information, because this is only the beginning. There is so much more to learn, so many techniques, so many plans, so many strategies. Share this video with people you trust, whom you want to help become more independent, with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors. We need a community of people who understand that self-sufficiency is not just a hobby, but life insurance. A community that supports each other, that shares knowledge, that becomes stronger together. And write a comment. That is important. Tell me which of these 12 plants you will plant this year. Which one appeals to you the most? Which one appeals most practical for your situation? Do you already have experience with one of these plants? Tell me about it. Tell us all about it, because we learn from each other. Every experience is valuable. Every comment helps others who are just starting out, who are unsure, who wonder if they can do it. The cold is not an enemy. I want to emphasize that once more, because it is so important. The cold is a teacher, a strict, relentless, but honest teacher. It shows you what is truly strong, what truly works, which plants are serious about survival. And these 12 plants that you got to know today are the best students this teacher ever had. They have passed the test 1,000 times, over centuries, over millennia. Lerne von ihnen, pflanze sie, pflege sie, auch wenn sie kaum Pflege brauchen. Observiere sie, wundere sie, ernte sie und werde frei. Frei von Furcht, frei von Abhängigkeit. Frei dein Leben so zu leben, wie du es willst. Mit der Sicherheit, dass du für dich selbst und die Menschen, die du liebst, versorgen kannst. Noch egal, was kommt. Noch egal, wie kalt es wird. Du bist vorbereitet. Du weißt, was zu tun. Du hast die Werkzeuge. Du hast das Wissen. Nun fehlt dir nur der Wille zu handeln. Und diesen Willen, ich weiß, du hast ihn bereits. Anderweitig wärst du nicht bisher hier geblieben. If these insights have changed the way you look at the plants in your garden, then subscribe to our channel. We are digging up the history they tried to bury. Plant the future. The next treasure will be soon revealed. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this channel to become part of our growing community of independence.